Welcome to All Things EVM, where we talk about all things Ethereum compatible. We talk about chains, we talk about yield. And today, guys, I've got a great guest on with me. We have 0xBreadguy, and he is going to be joining us for a conversation about MegaETH in particular. And I'm very excited to have him. I met him years ago. Starting out in Frentech, actually, during the bear market, and we've been chatting back and forth in Frentech, but as well as X, and just want to welcome him today. And let's jump on into it. Here is OXBreadguy. Make sure you follow him, guys, on X and other media sources. Bread, how are you?
Hey, thanks for having me on, man. Yeah, it's like we were talking pre-show, but Rentec, man, it's we cut it up way back in the trenches. Was it about a year and a half, 2 years ago?
Yeah,
This is our first time meeting for people listening. It's cool to finally be able to take it IRL.
absolutely. So yeah, how much did you throw into Frentech back in the day? I think I threw easily 10 ETH at it.
Yeah, so in the bear, I had a couple of tranches of stuff that I was just like, this is a no touch. This is the thing. We just gotta ride this thing out. Don't overtrade. Don't get chopped up. I liquidated a few of those to bring into Frentech.
Yep.
So yeah, it was not good.
Yeah, it was unfortunate to see it fail long term. I think leadership in that was the absolute problem. I think the concept was great, and I liked the community. A lot of smart people got to meet. Obviously, I met you there, so that was really cool. And it's been fun to continue those relationships into this more bullish part of the market, and hopefully, we get some people meeting together and building together, and because that's what it's all about, right? Like besides the money,
Yeah.
of course.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, yeah, we're all trying to make this sustainable, right? Like, and sustainable plus plus if we can be successful. But yeah, I'm actually the same as you, where like I have a lot of lasting friendships from that whole SocialFi era, right? Like OX5F, he's about to launch Ethos Network. I still talk to him, like CBB, like Barack Como, like like everyone that make see people I've met in real life since then. So like I'm fond of the trauma bonding we were able to have. Dragos, another one I met in real life recently, uh, and yeah, it's unfortunate it didn't work out. They were in a power position and they fumbled it, frankly. But it happens.
Yeah, it happens. That's part of growing and building in this space. And any kind of startup really is going to have some wins and losses. But as long as we fail forward, right, we're making progress.
I'm
Sucks to
still
lose.
bullish on the SocialFi sector.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. Talk to me about is it Kaido? Are you into the Yaps? I see you on the leaderboard at
Yeah,
least.
yeah. I just checked today because they're doing the voting stuff. I'm actually 14th all time for collected yaps. I know, yeah, it's kind of like SocialFi adjacent, right? Like, or it is. It's the InfoFi is how they're labeling themselves, and it's all around like trying to drive productive conversations. The Kaido actually like they pull off all the text from Twitter, right? They index that stuff. They have their own algorithm. They run against it, and then like based on how they see the conversation going, the context, if it's like crypto relevant, and like if there's meaningful exchanges going back and forth, if you're generating meaningful exchanges, then you typically you earn these yaps, right? The exchange is a yap. So yeah, it's kind of a cool thing in trying to drive value or try to tokenize. I wouldn't even say tokenize, but try to just like quantify the value that people are creating on crypto Twitter through conversation.
Yeah, I think the social fi adjacent is probably the right way to say it, but I think it's really hard to bring crypto Twitter outside of X, right? Like bringing those people into a new platform that you have to build, and so I like the fact that it's built in, to the
Yep.
platform where we're all meeting anyway. It definitely helps to see that leaderboard and go, maybe I should comment, or try to strike up conversation in the comments with some of those leaders. That's been a useful strategy, at least for those I see on the leaderboard. At least I just got started today. Honestly, I watched your interview with your AMA with Carpenter of Web3, and
Oh
you
yeah.
guys got me jonesing for that. I'm a yield guy. I spend a lot of time in the trenches in Uniswap, and I'm a concentrated liquidity provider for the most part. Do some staking and do other kind of
Yeah.
loop stuff. Like, I don't know if you follow Steven the Calculator guy. I'm a big fan of his.
Doesn't ring a
And
bell now.
okay, so he's a big guy on YouTube, and does a great job on X as well. Just huge ETH maxi, does a lot of uh, liquidity provision, not necessarily concentrated liquidity, but does a lot of looping strategies, and breaks down calculations on what kind of yields he's getting. But anyway,
Oh, nice.
so you've been traveling quite a bit lately, and did you get a chance to, like you said, you met Makesy in real life? Was that part of your travels, or?
No, yeah, that was ETH Denver of last year, if I recall correctly. I did meet a lot of people. Like so, Dragos, I met him for the first time. I met CBB, actually the whole FinTech crew in Singapore. Yeah, so I was traveling for 3 months. Went to Singapore for Token 2049, and I knew I was moving across the country. So like my other half, she's like, well, she doesn't normally get time off. So we sold everything. She quit her job. We went to Singapore, ended up backpacking in Southeast Asia and Europe for like 3 months because again, she wouldn't have that normal time off, not as an American. Um, so she quit and knew we were in transition, did that until the end of December, just came back and went back to the Midwest, and then did a 30-hour car drive to our new home, which is now on the West Coast. I'm over here now. We're getting set up. Like my office is in shambles and still trying to get used to all this stuff. I just got my mic in yesterday, so I can actually have this conversation, thankfully. Um, yeah, so like, yeah, we're getting all settled. But yeah, a lot of traveling. I'm excited to actually have an office and be able to do this stuff more
That's
consistently.
And you've been full-time Web3 for how long?
About a year. Like I've been doing like putting in the hours that would quantify as full time for about 3 years now. But one was 1 foot in the door, 1 foot out. Right, I was doing my Web2 stuff and like just grinding through the night for like a year and a half, 2 years, building some stuff on a smaller EVM chain. Actually, you might if you're EVM Maxi, you remember VChain?
Absolutely, yeah.
Uh, from, yeah, from 2017. So like I owned that ecosystem, contributed a lot for a couple of years with a small dev team, just cutting our teeth trying to like it wasn't very competitive, so that's why we did it. Um, didn't work out. It was just too small. Like we were doing a couple $1,000s in volume every day, and it's just like that's not sustainable as a business. Um,
Definitely.
so gave up, quit, gave our soul off the business, quit my day job, and then for the last year, I've just been doing like content and trying to like contribute to the ecosystem in different ways.
Yeah, what do you find yourself doing on chain besides making content? And you do a lot of great content, very technical stuff, lots of analytics into the space, and who's moving, who's building. What do you find yourself doing on chain?
Honestly, like the thing that fascinates me, so like I was doing like normal, like I'm not a trader. I don't do fast moving stuff. I do like slow, predictable positions. I did a lot of stuff with Pendle, like I like writing up a lot of their stuff. My thing is typically in like so Pendle restaking, like that whole slow moving high TVL shit. Um, where I've been gravitating towards is I find myself really fascinated with like the uh, product design, frankly. Like, oh, you see these things come out. It's kind of what I did with Frentech even. Like Frentech came out and I liked it. I saw it. And I have a technical background, so I say I can actually break down the structure of their smart contracts and like their front end and like how this stuff is sustainable, how they can migrate, like there's the incentive loops that they have. So that kept interesting me. So in my full time, whatever year, it's been a lot of just like trying to evaluate products that are coming to market, trying to think of new products that maybe there's a gap for, or see what the market's doing. So like I'll just randomly throw out ideas of, there's a product opportunity here. So once you build this thing, there's like this is how you productize that. This is the structure of a current thing that exists, and like review it, break down the architecture, try to make it understandable for people. I like educating a lot, so I do a lot of that. So it's mostly just been that, and that's kind of how I grew my Twitter presence. Is I would just for free, I would just write up like, "Hey, this is what this protocol is doing. Hey, this is what I would do. Hey, this is why this is interesting. This is where the stuff is going." And through that, protocol started reaching out to me. They started wanting me to like write about them, even like organically. And then ultimately, that's actually what led to MegaETH. I was writing about them because they interested me in kind of telling their story and through that, they wanted me to join their team.
That's awesome. So yeah, this really is the subject of our show today is MegaETH. I'd love to hear more about what's going on. I understand it's going to be extremely fast, like sub-second, finalization or finality, and understand that EigenDA is a part of that recipe. But tell me more about just a high level for my audience what MegaETH is, and then we can get into the nerdy stuff.
Yeah, sure. Like you mentioned, your background is like gaming, and like you obviously you don't do like I nerd on the infrastructure, so like yeah, talking about like oh sub 10 millisecond block times, like we're getting instant latency like that, like okay, like that's not like what does it mean to me is probably what you're hearing. Like as a user, what does that mean to me? So high level is just that like we have two technical co-founders that started this stuff up there. One is totally not Web3, right? He had a PhD from Stanford in low latency systems and like distributed low latency systems specifically. So Elong is his name. And he like worked in data centers, right? Data centers is a bunch of servers talking really freaking fast to each other. He saw a lot of the architecture and being deployed in Web3 and is like, I can optimize this. Like you guys have a bunch of things talking together and you're doing it pretty slow. I want to like juice this thing, right? And he's world class, right? Like PhD, Stanford, like this is his thing. He actually in his studies met Elon or met Lei, who's our other co-founder, who's kind of the same thing, but he's graduated from MIT. Like he's actually worked with Sriram on like the Eigenlayer paper. Like he's another like whiz kid, but he's on the Web3 side, right? Consensus studies, all this shit. Those two kind of came together, formed Wonder Twins of like, okay, we have a guy who's really smart with the consensus, like Web3 shit, a guy who's really smart with just straight up performance. Let's look at the design space that exists, Ethereum, right? They already worked with Sriram and has a lot of, he actually had a grant from Ethereum Foundation at sponsored a lot of his research. They just was like, let's build a super fast system, right? Let's build a system that is real time is the tag, right, for what we're doing. And then there's just that's just like means something that's super responsive, right? And like for you and for your audience, people who interact with blockchains today, they're not very responsive to you, right? Like you click a button, especially if you're on ETH mainnet or even some L2s today, you click a button, you wait a few seconds, transaction went through, wait a few seconds. Oh, like the bid's on the chain, and then now people can accept my bid, right? Like it's not your phone, right? It's not clicking the button and do whatever. So the team is coming together to try to minimize the time it takes for the chain to be able to update and then distribute the information that you did and be responsive and doing it in a way that allows anyone to kind of just build unrestricted, right? So you can have like we have a couple of apps that are building on our chain, games, right? You mentioned Axie Infinity was kind of where you cut your teeth.
Yeah,
We
that's
have
where I got.
games coming on
Yeah,
chain that are
absolutely. Yeah, that's where I got my start and really built my audience from that. At least on the YouTube side, not so much on the X side, but yeah.
yeah, so great. That's amazing because like that's I think games are the most like ubiquitous thing that we can talk about. Like everyone has played a game at some point in their life on their phone. But even just like stuff that's as instances like streaming or like browsing through Instagram or whatever, like you click a button, you want this thing to react to you. You want to be able to like feel engaged because once you extend that time, after about a second is when you start losing your intentions, and then after 10 seconds is where you like straight up are just like I'm moving on. So yeah, it's just these two guys that were really well positioned to build a really high performance system, and they're coming together to make a blockchain that is it's a layer two on Ethereum. That's the stack. That's why we're make ETH, make Ethereum great again. Just trying to make a little bit of an opinionated approach on making these things hyper performant because no one has really gone in that direction, at least in the way that we are.
Yeah, awesome. So it's an L2, but super fast. You're going to compete with other fast blockchains. A lot of people think Solana is super fast. I think
Mhm.
Sui has been up there for me, doing a lot of interaction with that chain over the last couple months. But you're talking speeds even faster than that, right?
Yeah, but yes, because we're an L2. Like I think that was one of the reasons like I really got excited about the project is like I saw the landscape of Ethereum is doing the modular thing, a bunch of L2s, I have the L1s, and I saw all of these L2s like basically just replicating the exact same structure that the L1 had. Like, oh, we have a sequencer, but like now it's decentralized a sequencer, and then because you're decentralizing it, you make it kind of weak. When I saw MegaETH come along and read their white paper, like you just read it and they're like they this sequencer has always been a bad word. It's always been this thing of like, oh my God, they own it, it's centralized, whatever. And they took a unique twist on how that can actually be deployed and said they really lean into it. Like if we have to have this structure, instead of redoing everything that we already did at the L1, let's lean into this thing, make it the literal best you can make it, and then through that we can gain performance that is frankly not achievable if you go the other route. And you mentioned Sui, you mentioned like Solana's obviously the big king right now with high performance chains. Like the the nuance of being an L2 is that we don't have to have consensus, right? If you're an L1, you have to have consensus. You have to all agree on what the appropriate thing is to create the thing being the block, right? Create a block, agree on the block. Now everyone else like knows it's canonical and act against it. Because we have a sequencer and because we can be really opinionated on how it's built, we don't have to wait for that agreement period, right? So it's, I give you my transaction, this thing builds it hyper quick. It is able to then give it out to the ecosystem and move on. No one has to agree with it, right? It can just propagate this information instantly. We can minimize that time to, we're aiming for single digits and hopefully under a single mil, waiting 2 seconds, waiting 5 seconds to like instantaneously, it's back in your hand and then you can act against it.
Yeah, for all those of you that don't know what milliseconds is, I mean a millisecond is imperceptible, really, to even like the human ear. Like I deal a lot with the audio side. I actually have a background in audio visual, and that's why I have the video side of what I do is it was primary. I started a business in 2009, creating content, and but it really comes from a technical background. So like any time of software computation, anytime you can get sub millisecond, you're like instantaneous. It's not something you're really seeing or percepting, which is phenomenal for this space to be able to get to that spot. That's unheard of territory, right? So far.
Yes, it is for the full transaction life cycle. And when I say that, I mean like again, like if you think about what happens in the process is I click submit my transaction, it has to make its way to the thing that makes the block. Then it has to send from the thing that made its block to the chain. The chain has to then give it to another node that then gives it back to you, right? So it's a full there and back transaction. And then once it's actually created and exists in the ecosystem, people can accept it. Using a practical example, you create a bid, right? I can't accept your bid until the bid is true. It's real, right? Until that action is real. In with a layer one with consensus, you place a bid. Everyone has to agree. Okay, he placed a bid. This thing is real. It's sturdy. And if you're aware of how blockchains work, like things can be kind of true for a little bit, and then they can be like where you mentioned finality earlier, right? So you can get confirmation and say, like, cool, we're building it. There's a pretty high likelihood it'll stay true for a long time. In proof of stake networks, after a certain period, it's like this thing is absolutely true. It cannot change, right? That's finality. And the so it's soft for a little bit and then people act again, and like applications will only act against things, and it's kind of arbitrary after they're confident that like this thing is probably going to stay true. And then for us, because we don't have to have that consensus agreement, we can say create this thing, it is absolutely true instantaneously, we guarantee that. And then it means other applications can act against it, other applications, other people like me. So you place a bid, instantly true if we can process it fast, and then I can instantly accept it, right? So like under 100 milliseconds, that's the threshold for that instantaneous feel. Like that's the goal that we're trying to hit.
That's incredible. So what kind of like technical? I mean, what sort of everyday applications are we talking about? I mean, that's going to be great for trading, like in a perp dex or something like that, being able to do some massive volume if you needed to. But I'm thinking of other interactions. Gaming obviously is a big thing where you could, blow for blow, like actually have things. I mean, it would be odd I think, to have like finality, blockchain finality for, you know, hit points or whatever, but that
Yeah.
might be a little too granular and take up a lot of space. But what sort of applications are you excited about, or that you can reveal? I don't even know if you can yet with MegaETH.
Yeah, so yeah, we've had a few that we've revealed, and since this is gaming centric, or at least that's where we're starting here. So like the DeFi one's obvious, but then we have stuff like have you dealt with on Cyber? Are you aware of the
I
brand
think
there?
I did. You mention it in the Carpenter Web3 interview at all?
I did.
Yeah, I thought so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so on Cyber was like Yeah, it was like a gallery on that was done in the last bull market, right? NFTs were popular where you can bring in your stuff and you can show the things that you have on chain in a digital space. The founder of OnCyber is actually building AWE on MegaETH, and what that is autonomous world engines. And just I keep bringing this up every time I talk because I love the demo so much. It's like you can be in a room and have literally just the boxes of like pump fum coins that are dropping like instantly being created. Like obviously we would need the MegaETH equivalent of that, but things that are generated in real time on chain. He created a game or a user interface that allows you to build these worlds that's so responsive and so lightweight that like you can have literally the coin that was just launched on the chain come in through a portal right above you, and then the size of the box that comes into the portal is the size of the market cap, and then like you can have on-chain interactions where like, oh, you just bumped into it so you had to buy some of it. And because again it's the chain's really responsive, these things are being created in real time, they can come in and you can whenever you run into it, right? Like if I was running into this thing on a chain that had a 2-second block time, right? I would run into it and then be one, two, hey, you made a purchase, good job. Like it's not, it doesn't feel good, right? But if I can do it and I can instantaneously, again within that like 100 millisecond thing, uh, time frame, right? If I can bump into it and then, oh, I just made a purchase, like that feels good. It feels Web 2. So stuff like that.
Cool, cool. So let's back out a little bit and talk about more of this is a modular stack, right? We're using EigenDA. How does that
Mm.
interact with like blobs currently? With most L2s are using the blob space. Is MegaETH going to be using that as well, or is that
Yeah,
null and
you're
void?
trying to get technical, huh?
A little bit. Actually, I'm fascinated by this stuff. So let's go.
Yeah, okay, so yeah. Sorry listeners if this isn't your jam, but this is my jam absolutely. So I love
Let's
this.
go. Come on, yeah.
So Ethereum's big uh Ethereum's modular roadmap, right? So there's Ethereum itself, it's a separate it's a blockchain. All these layer twos are launching separate blockchains. In order to have these layer twos launch and to like these layer twos have to have two components to be kind of a layer two, right? It you create all these transactions, creates big bundles of it. So in our case, say we have a block that goes and we have 10,000 transactions. What happens is we take that transaction, are all those transactions, and we have to make the data of the transactions available to the world to show that we're not misbehaving, frankly, and that like what we're saying is true, and we have to store it somewhere. Um, Preferably on chain. So there's some places that do it off chain. And for us, we have the like transactions that data that was being created that we have to post somewhere can only get so small, right? So if you have a chain that processes a shit ton of transactions, it requires more data to store. Ethereum is notoriously a small and slow blockchain, right? Like it's doing that on purpose, right? It's trying to say we don't want to scale too hard because if we scale too hard, that means people can't run nodes. It means we lose some decentralization. We don't want to do that. So these layer twos have several options of where they can post all their transaction data. They can either do it to Ethereum, which again has some upper bounds of the amount of limit that are storage that it can actually hold, and it's a little more expensive. And then you have other alternatives called alt-DA, data availability is what this is all for. Um, there's like EigenDA, which is propped up by the EigenLayer protocol. It's an AVS on top of that. You have like Celestia, which is a chain in the Cosmos network. Then you have just like purely off-chain stuff. Avail is another one. And so we would love to be able to use Ethereum. The problem is that, as I was mentioning, the more transactions you have, the more data you require. And it's frankly not feasible for us at all to even use Ethereum to store our data because it's just too much data, right? If you'd like just to throw some numbers at you guys, right? Like EigenDA right now, there's 15 megabytes per second. Doesn't like relatively, that's a lot in the data availability space. They do 15 megabits per second or megabytes per second. And in our final state, we're talking like 100,000 transactions per second, 2 gig gas. Those are both just like ways to quantify how big and fast your chain is. Like we're already exceeding what EigenLayer or EigenDA is capable of today. So like they need to be able to up their tech to be able to match us. So we would love to use Ethereum. Still settled to Ethereum, which means like we post a proof down to Ethereum to show like the state transition. But our DEA of data availability is going to be going to EigenDA because they're the only ones that can handle us, frankly.
That's awesome. So you're using Ethereum to settle down to, but all of the
Correct.
all the data is going through Eigen and their modular, the similar to that of Tia or Celestia. So what about decentralization? Like, are you guys running a bunch of sequencers, or how does that all work with MegaETH in particular?
Yeah, like so this is part of the unique thing of our stack and how we're able to achieve the performance that we have. So like one, like you you have to like every L2 has a sequencer and the sequencer itself, like we're referring to this as node specialization of like we have a bunch of very specialized computers that make up our network, which then allows the entire network to be more performant. So we have the sequencer. The sequencer itself is the thing that processes the transaction and then gives out the information. What you run into as an issue in a lot of these high performance environments is that the rest of the network that you spin up, for us, it's like the full nodes, it's like right all the things in the periphery that needs to be able to keep up to propagate the information. Typically, like it's hard for them to keep up it at a certain threshold for several reasons. One, because sometimes you need a machine to be very big to keep up with the big machine, right? So like if I have a big sequencer and I generate a lot of transactions, it's great, it's performant, it's whatever, and I'm constantly spitting information out at like someone running a home computer. If you don't have a home computer that's very robust, right, you can't keep up, you can't prove that it's true. Like that's the whole like ethos of blockchain. Verification is the word there. So what we did was like you have the full node, which the full node again is just like the thing that is listening to the thing producing blocks and trying to make sure that they're not lying, they're telling the truth. Um, and again, it's typically can be close to, but doesn't have to be the same hardware requirements. Well, what we did is we took that full node, and if they're still available, you can still do that if you want to spend the money. Solana notoriously went this path versus Ethereum, right? Everyone criticized them because they said, "Oh, the nodes that you have to run to keep up with the network are just too expensive. It doesn't make it decentralized." We're doing that, but we're taking it one step further where we have full nodes. You can do that if you want, but also in order to enable participation in the network, we took the full node, broke it into two things, and we have these are all permissionless, by the way, so you can run a full node or you can run what we're calling a replica node. A replica node, instead of whenever the sequencer is big and producing all this information, I can either send to you like a full block, and the full block has all the transactions. Like just as an example, say you and I send one ETH back and forth 5 times, boom, 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 boom. It still lands in my wallet. Nothing changed, right? So like that is like I could receive the block and verify the back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, but I need to do all that work to keep up, and then I need to like need to follow that along. Replica nodes actually just receive the difference of what changed, so they don't have to do the processing. So it would be the sequencer sending, "Hey, nothing changed. I don't have to do any work, right? I can just verify, oh, it didn't change." Um, and it's obviously because I'm doing less work. I have to like my machine has to be can be lighter, and then there's another group, they're called the provers. They work in conjunction with the thing that just receives the difference, the replica nodes. These things are really small machines, and all they do is sit there and constantly verify the blocks. Like that's what their job is, and then they send the proof over to the replica nodes. So it's very technical, but TLDR is that you have this big machine, typically or used to, that would, if you couldn't have it keep up with the network, your network can't grow. We broke that. We have that available if people want to do it. And then we created a secondary construction, which is two smaller machines relatively that work together and in conjunction can attain roughly the same level of verifiability that was achievable before. So now, like we're lifting up the lower bound of what is required to participate in the network, which means sequencer can be big and can be performed. It can generate all this stuff, and everyone else can participate however they want. And again, it's permissionless stuff. It's actually very similar to what Celestia is doing. It's like data availability sampling. You have a bunch of very light machines that sit there and constantly test if the data is being made available. And a network of these things works better than having like a few big things trying to do it. Yeah,
Yeah,
so that's like the structure.
that's cool. So decentralization from that perspective, are you guys going to get criticized for having less nodes, or are you going to? That's a big criticism, obviously, for something like Solana or even some of the L2s, aren't quite as decentralized as you might like them to be.
Yeah, I didn't even hit on the big thing. So the big thing is like, so again, we have the sequencer. The sequencer is this big machine that creates the blocks, right? Produces the blocks. Our goal is like the criticism against L2s is you have this machine, it's run by the team, therefore it's not decentralized. What if someone unplugs it? Uh, our strategy there is that yes, we'll have one big machine, and instead of decentralizing that machine and saying, oh, we're going to have 15 of these machines, everyone agrees, like it sounds really like a L1 small validator set, right? Having them come to consensus, having them do whatever, because when you introduce consensus again in that conversation, now you're introducing latency again. The level up that we have is okay, we'll take the 15 machines that we said, and instead of having consensus, we'll just have a rotation, right? So we'll have 15. They don't even have to all be run by our team, right? So we'll have our team, say the CryptoPunks run one, we'll have another one, and we'll have slots that you have a full monopoly on your block production, and then once you're done, it goes to the next person, and you constantly rotate them. So then we can continue to have very, very performant systems, and then you increase censorship resistance because now if a slot is someone censoring you, God forbid, that slot will end at some point, and then the next person will do it. It's actually very similar to what we have with Tornado Cash, right? Tornado Cash, people were censoring transactions that were interacting with that contract on the L1. And it wasn't an indefinite censorship, but it was a censorship, right? For the 12-second slots, 30 seconds, whatever. And the thing was, you would submit your transaction, it would sit in the mempool, and then once someone came along that was comfortable building your transaction, they would build it. So it was a delay, but it wasn't a full total censorship. So like that's similar concept to us. We'll have a bunch of really beefy sequencers rotating across parties to enable high performance and censorship resistance and liveness.
That's great. So you're hitting on all those criticisms with trying to do things different, trying to do things faster, trying to really scale Ethereum. I think I'm really excited for what's possible with MegaETH. With the speed of it is incredible, but I love that you guys are really tackling all of those those Ethereum ethos sort of questions, right? Like yeah, you're going to use EigenDA, which there is definitely criticism about. You're not using ETHDA, but you have to get around that. That you can't scale in the way that you would like to, or the way that your founders would like to, with the way that Ethereum's run now. One question as a guy who uses a hardware wallet a lot, how my experience is definitely going to be different if I'm having to hit my Trezor, or my Ledger a bunch of times between
Yeah.
transactions. Obviously, some applications I'm going to just run a wallet that's not connected to a hardware wallet for the performance action. But are you guys considering making that different at all for your chain, or is it just going to be Trezor for financial transactions and a burner wallet for something else?
Yeah, I haven't heard what we've committed to with everything. I know like the basic construction EVM wise, we're aiming for full equivalency, right? So we want to be, and thankfully we have some EIPs coming out soon that'll allow us to maintain equivalency while also having a lot of those UX improvements. 4844 is already live, smart contract wallet, as you know, like
Mm-hmm.
702 is coming. I personally don't know how. I haven't tried to interact with those with Trezor to see if like it improves the experience any. But that's if you can expect the same behavior to front guard or as front guard EVM environments. We want to try to leverage as much as we can with the network effects of the EVM. So just like on the vanguard of adoption there.
That's great. So in comparison to other L1s, I mean, we have Berachain coming out, proof of liquidity, right? Like, how are
Yep.
you differentiating yourself? I mean, is it just speed on MegaETH, or are there other things that you're trying to communicate to your audience or people coming in that differentiate?
Yeah, it's tech and ethos. I think the big thing that has been lacking in the Ethereum space, and like we're making a little bit of a bet that like there is an appetite. I know I am. That's the reason I joined the team. I think there's an appetite within the Ethereum ecosystem to to have on-chain experiences that literally are just like more performant, right? So like, we've seen Hyperliquid's taken off, and just purely based on the UX that they've been able to serve up, because yeah, they're like not as decentralized as everyone like. they're an L1 and they have a smaller validator set. That's been the very big or the biggest criticism against them, right? It's like, oh, there's 4 validators, they're all co-located in Japan. Like, not that's not a blockchain, which is a valid criticism of an L1, but we're an L2. We don't need consensus. We don't need all of that stuff, right? So we to maintain. Actually, that's a great example. We had the recent run-in with Sonium. I don't know if you followed from whatever a week or two ago, right? They said, "Oh, Sonium is censoring transactions on the L2. There's no way for us to do this thing. Like they're sniping meme coins, like, no, not sniping meme coins, but they're canceling meme coins, all this shit." And Donna from L2B came through and he's like, no, look, because it's an L2, like I was able to one swap a censored meme coin on their chain, and then two, like you can actually exit to the L1 if you really want to, and you can do that by going around the sequencer. And because you're an L2, you have those properties, right? They can get around the thing that's building the blocks, the sequencer, and you can totally exit if you want to without any permission whatsoever. That's not the same case whenever it's 4 boxes totally run by a centralized entity, right? So like
Absolutely.
that wouldn't be the case on Hyperliquid. You straight up do not have that option if they make that decision, right? It's different.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
yeah, so I mean, like like that's what gets me excited is that like we can still preserve a lot of those things that kind of fly in the face of what everyone thinks is like the appropriate thing, and frankly, we can deliver a better experience because we're leaning into that so hard. And thankfully, Ethereum grants us a lot of stuff that we wouldn't if we were to like launch our own chain and try to introduce everything else.
That's awesome. Do you think the current narrative of AI and stuff like that will be super performant on MegaETH, or are you guys not
We're gonna
considering that?
find out.
Yeah, awesome.
We're gonna
For
we're
sure.
gonna find out because our the OX Mega Mafia, right, is our an accelerator that we're running. We have 15, 18 teams in there now that we're co-building with, that we're really devoting a lot of time and energy with to make sure that they're ready to go. We have several AI teams within that, and then I know there's some interest outside of it. So um, I think honestly, it's a generalized blockchain, right? It's like we're going to be an environment for everyone. So it really is just a matter of everything that you think is fun on blockchain can be a little bit more fun, a little more high velocity, a little bit more exciting potentially on a this chain. And I think the reason I like we think that because like not only is it just fast, right? The other component of that is just the constraints to actually building unique applications that is afforded to you on a performant blockchain. Like even recently talking, I think it was 2 weeks ago, last week, with Yilong. You're an EVM maxi here, so like just an idea of like whenever you send a transaction can only be so big because it's measured in gas. It can only be so big because the block that is being generated can only be so big. And it can only be so big because all of the validators can only process so much because their computers are only so big, right? Their servers. Um, so he based on the conversations, right? So EVM is our RV EVM is parallelized. It's a big buzzword these days, right? Solana's doing it, Monad talks about it. But the other component of ours that's very unique is that we actually execute and then order our transactions, which means you remove basically the upper bound of how big a transaction can be. So it means like the complexity that you can express on chain as a builder, as an application, is no longer constrained by the size of the block or the size of the transaction. We could do that because our chain is so big and so fast. We don't have to throttle ourselves on performance. What we have to throttle ourselves on is how much shit is being put on chain, like how big it's growing, the state, right? You might hear that a lot for node runners. Like they're like, oh, the entire history of Ethereum is 120 gigabytes, right? And that's because it's going 12 transactions a second for a couple of years now, 10 years, whatever. If we're going at 100,000 transactions a second, right? All of that data, if it's all of it's in the new slots, like that's grows very big, very fast. And that's always been the bottleneck for a lot of these chains. Is like you can't have everyone trying to run a full node that needs 500 terabytes of storage or petabyte of storage, right? You can't do that. So we base our costs based on store or like data in the database that's actually being utilized, right? So if you're trying to utilize new space, we need to tax that more than like if you're just reusing space and being efficient with it. And because we can do that, we can create these things like call them long running transactions, right? So you create a transaction arbitrarily complex. It could be crazy big, whatever. No longer constrained. These creators can just like they can really truly just build new unique shit, even if the compute time it would take to build this transaction is bigger than the block time, right? So like give an idea, if the block is 5 milliseconds, if I were to send a transaction and they were to order it and then try to execute it, the maximum time it could take to execute would be the time of the block. So 5 milliseconds, 10 milliseconds, 2 seconds if you're base. But for us, because we execute it and then order it, he gave an example that like, yeah, you can have a very complex, very like massive on-chain transaction that does a bunch of weird, wacky shit. Like maybe it's a chain DeFi position that goes from a Lending protocol to a whatever, kind of like a Flashstone, just like very big. Say it takes 10 seconds to do the thing, assuming you can pay for it. It takes 10 seconds to do the thing. You can have a 10-second transaction, 10 seconds complex, packed into a 5 millisecond block. So like this thing's constantly turning this stuff out, but now it'll like it takes away the creative limitations that a lot of these people have. Like I don't know what they're gonna do with it, but like just that little like switch of like, oh, I no longer have to build like really scarce on-chain experiences. I can just build as a app developer. So I'm kind of waiting to see what the unlock is, and imagine AI agents will be one of those.
Oh, that's fantastic. Just my mind just starts going in all different directions with the possibilities there. I mean, you're basically like the Minecraft of possibilities, right? Like you could literally
Yeah,
build the largest AI world, or on sorry, not AI, but just the most dense. I hate
yeah,
to say
yeah.
metaverse because
Like
metaverse is so like last cycle, right? But there's that
yeah.
possibility that's it's actually a reality on in what you're talking about. But anyway, I wanted to get back to real quick because of the other part of my audience is so much focused on the DeFi side of things. Are we going to have Uniswap? Are we going to have traditional dexes in the EVM space populating on MegaETH?
So I'll do you one better. So this actually calls back to the Mega Mafia stuff. AWE was one of them. GTE, Techo, we just revealed today. So again, we have like 18 projects that we're working very closely with. Like we're not interested in just doing a fork, like a fast fork. Like we don't want Uniswap, but Uniswap fast. We want teams that come in and see what we're building and have a little bit of like a creative unlock with what they see here, a belief in that a better UX, that a faster chain or responsive chain, like all of that can lead to a better outcome. And we've been working with them since I joined in November. I was aware of everyone in July. The team has been building chain for 3 years and then like doing a lot of this mafia program for over a year now. And so that is just to say, no forks. We're working specifically with these teams, and they've been co-building. Whenever I was after I did the Singapore thing, the team was actually living with all of these builders, 15 of them, or 15 teams, in Chiang Mai for 30 days, right? And they just like sat down, they build up camaraderie amongst each other. They're trying to actually like build in their products together. So again, talking about like today, we revealed Techo finances. Uh, a guy who used to be an ex-prop trader who had a specific DeFi position that he wanted to put on was always kind of annoying because he had to buy it. He had to go through a basket of stuff to achieve it. So he's like, okay, I'm building this platform. It allows for leveraged lending. Allows me to do this product that I frankly wanted as a trader, and I'm trying to bring that to life. And on the calls, because we have a call every week with all 15-ish teams, and says like, hey, like, we want to make sure we integrate with Cap, which is our stable coin provider, which is another team that sees an opportunity, and because the efficiency of the chain is such that he can isolate a particular yield opportunity and then make that available to token holders. And then it's the same as GTE, who is trying to co-locate with are trying to work with like market makers to make sure that not only are the end users themselves having a good experience on the platform, but because we have some predictability in our design, right? A big sequencer, a planned rotation, like all of this stuff, we can have market makers actually come on chain. And because they can operate in a very low latency environment, they can plan a lot of stuff. So now, even though you are not a market maker, you maybe don't have the co-location super whatever, we have teams like GTE and market makers who can come plan ahead with us, build up these products, and elevate the DeFi sector as a whole on the chain because there is some predictability there for them. So that is just to say that like you didn't hear me say anything for like an Aave clone. Like these are teams that we've been co-building with in person several iterations now. Chiang Mai, Berlin was another time. And we're trying to build things that are unlocked by our design, not things that are just faster because of our design. And yeah,
So
that's
these are,
shaping up pretty well.
yeah, brand new applications. I mean, I would imagine some of these teams have worked in other places. They're not brand new devs or anything like that. So you're bringing in, is it fresh
It's a
talent or
combo.
is it,
Some are young. Yeah,
yeah,
it's like some are young scrap people. Some are Web 2. Like they're people that literally just like the team that we're talking about now. It's actually an AI team. They show their user retention from whatever. It's all Web 2. They don't have any Web 3 components. They had several million. I forget what the actual acronym is for the Web 2 world, but recurring users that they're a successful Web 2 platform that want to build in because it's AI and there's like some agent level ups. They want to bring in some Web3 components, and because they see a chain that now can support again the responsiveness, they can successfully inhabit them. They're like, okay, we're going to take a shot on you guys, and we're going to take a shot on them. So we're going to lift them up. We're helping them through like all of the things that are necessary to actually get going in this space as best as possible. So it's a combination of age veterans that like frankly could retire because they're so successful that just want to build weird wacky shit, and then people who are like I'm going to just call it out. Euphoria is the one I was just mentioning there. Like it's a guy who's just like I just want to build some cool shit, and like this is the chain that matches my needs. And then people who are young and just scrappy and have no experience building outside of just like they have an idea and we're willing to bet on them because they seem capable and are ready to deliver.
so that's cool. So tell me about what, you said you have some market makers. Are you guys have some deals with some people or, what's the economic side of MegaETH right now? Are you guys have done a raise, these sorts of things?
Yeah, so I can't actually speak to the ecosystem stuff that's managed by Amir and a couple other guys. I mean, I'm sure there's some stuff in place, but I'm not privy enough to say it without getting in
Yeah,
trouble.
that's understandable.
Um, Yeah, but like, so I can probably speak to like the strategy that the team has taken place because I don't know, you probably saw the Echo raise, right?
Hmm.
Like that was something
Yep.
that they had built up to after a long time. Like the original thing that got me involved is I saw the raise that they had from traditional VCs, right? So Lubin, Vitalik, Dragonfly, that like that it was announced in July, and that was $20 million. So I saw that. That's when I read up the white paper or whatever. Um, Hearing $20 million is not a lot relative to a lot of these L2s and L1s you see these days. You know, sometimes you're talking hundreds of millions of dollars being raised, which is fine. It just was not the path that this team wanted to go, even though they could have got that. They were rejecting a lot of those things because they wanted to make have a return to the golden age, we'll say, of making the network available to people that are everyday users, right? So that's what led into the Echo round that kicked off. I think we are closed a month ago, 2 months ago at this point. Raised 10 million from 3,200 investors. They got a stake in the game. Um, all I know is that, or all I can say is, like, job's not done, and like we're looking for more opportunities in crypto native ways to let people get involved in the ecosystem. And actually, just last week, I think it was last week, maybe 2 weeks ago, TTE, that which is the DEX that I was talking about, that is one of the mafia. They just announced they also raised, I think it was 2.5 million from Echo. So between our team and the mafia teams, we have an ethos of like try to give back to the people, to build up wealth effects, to build up a true community, to build up like real belief in a system where everyone has stake in a game.
That's cool. It sounds similar to like what Mode was trying to do. Are you familiar with Mode much at all? They're,
Yeah, yeah. So I know Mode. Yeah, it's great team. Actually, they were ahead of the AI pivot before a lot of people were. I was excited about that. But no, what would they do?
oh, they really have that ethos of, spreading the love around to all the different developments and the users themselves, and it felt more like a community based on, just trying to move the tech forward and spreading, the goodwill rather than the economic side of things, but also the economic side. I mean, they had their airdrop was well distributed, though it didn't, because it launched in, relative bear market conditions, didn't do super well. But I do expect, long term that they will continue to be more of a, I don't know, if a democracy is the right way to put it, but just they seem to be more about the ethos of what ETH and what MegaETH and what seems to be more um, more or less less economic driven and more experience driven or user driven or just everybody is going to be helping towards the goal rather than really spending a lot of time on courting VCs.
Nice. Yeah, like frankly, like they've been ahead of the ball for a few things. I saw they did the VE model for the voting. I think that might be what you're alluding to a little bit there. They were on
Hmm.
the AI stuff. Yeah, DeFi. They're DFAI. I don't know how to say it.
Right, right. Who
But
knows how to say it? Yeah,
yeah, but they're like, yeah, and I've talked to James. I actually like I was in conversations with them before joining the Mega team, like just because it seemed like a good group of guys, and they were kind of visionaries in a lot of the stuff. Again, the VE model, which took off with Aerodrome, or got reignited with Aerodrome, I should say.
yeah.
They were on that, and then yeah, the AI stuff. They've been preparing for that for a few months now. So I'm actually excited to see the success they've been having recently.
Yeah, I haven't been spending a lot of time in the ecosystem. Just don't see a lot of liquidity there right now for what I do a lot on
Yeah.
chain. But I have noticed their token is starting to wake up a little bit, and I should probably jump over there and see what's going on. But um, so
Hard to
let's
allocate your
move on
time,
to.
right?
Yeah, sorry.
It's hard to allocate your time, right? There's just so
Yeah,
many
absolutely.
different like protocols, chains, like that. It's yeah,
There's so much going on, and I have a lot of irons in the fire personally as well. And so though I wouldn't call myself a full time Web3 person. I do have a day job, but it's something I want to stick with. So it's not a question of when I'm going to go full time Web3,
get it.
but just how do I spin all the plates at once. But
Yep.
so what? I want to wrap this up. I have about
Mm.
5 minutes left, but I just want to know, what are the next steps for you guys? Are you guys launching a test net soon? Like what can my audience do next to interact with MegaETH?
I'd say the most immediate thing, I put out a tweet out today on this. If you have any yaps, come vote yaps for us on the Cato leaderboard. That votes on 2 days from now. Because that's a good way for us to get up there. Like we've been waiting for a while. They just got such a queue. It allows us to get on there and like measure social contributions to our overall network. Once that happens, I would just say one, testnet is imminent. So be on the lookout for that. And we're being pretty aggressive with our timelines. So once that gets going, we're like, as long as the chain is up and running, we're kind of in a little FAFO mode, not a word, like kind of just want to like get this stuff going and as long as it's safe, obviously, be aggressive with timelines. And then the second thing is just like I can't say too much, but just like keep your eye out. We have some surprises coming, and there's always going to be more opportunities that we deliver for the ecosystem.
Well, that's awesome. Thank you so much, Bread, for your time. Gosh, your brain moves so much faster than my own, and so it's fun to just listen and try to comprehend every bit of what you're talking about. I love
I'm
getting
bad about
deep
that. I need
into.
to slow down.
No, I don't. Honestly, man, I think that's what people are attracted to your content for is how much you obviously care about the tech side of things. There's not many people in CT that I think have that capability of not only understanding but making it palatable for other audiences. In your threads, in your comments to in other posts, and I just think you bring a different not a lot of technical guys are also content creators. You know what I'm saying? Like there's a few of them, but I think what you really are a legend for is bringing that technical aspect to CT and making it digestible. So I really appreciate what you bring, and that's what I was hoping to get to in this AMA, so that we definitely got there. Obviously, I just sat back and like tried to digest what was going on, and it's amazing how fast you can talk. I'm more of a listener, and I just love having people like you on. And thank you so much for taking the time. Nice to meet you IRL, and hope to I just can't wait to see what happens with MegaETH, but also not only MegaETH, but for your trajectory in the Web3 space. Doing content for not only MegaETH. I mean, I know you're part of that team, but you also comment on so many other things and really cover a lot of the space. So, one last question. I would love to get your perspective on what's going on with the Ethereum Foundation and all the drama. Just a current event sort of comment for our last question here.
Yeah, I made a post on that recently. So like clearly there's a lot of social turmoil. I think I like again, I've reached a moment of Zen where like because of the position that we have, we mentioned we post our data to EigenDA, we post our proof to Ethereum. Ethereum is in the very perfect position to serve us and our needs. So because of that, I'm in Zen. Like Ethereum does not have to move. Like we can continue to leverage what it's already been amazing at, and then make it powerful, right? Turn it into money on our ecosystem, allow people to have fun again on chain using ETH. Like that's the goal. So from our perspective, I'm in Zen. From like just an observational perspective, if I had to weigh in on where I think it should go, I think it should continue to scale the L1 conservatively. Conservatively just to mean like don't jeopardize its values, right? Like if you want to be the most decentralized, if you want to have good full nodes, whatever, do that. But it's in a little bit of a pickle, frankly, with a lot of these L2s. I call them the middle of the meat L2s because like, do you prioritize giving value to the L2s through growing data availability, the blobs you referenced earlier, or do you prioritize yourself and increase block space, reduce block times, all that stuff? So I think we're starting to see people wake up. I'm glad some of the people that were kind of whiny on the timeline have now like removed the dotties from their name. Um, I don't want to call out any names. It's just like people have been like there's a lot of drama. The chain will be fine. I promise you, the chain will be fine. But it's just like it takes a long time for value to accrue in an ecosystem that is modular like this because all of the value that we're creating at L2s, it takes a lot of that to then trickle down to Ethereum and you grow. Like there are some headwinds with that, but the chain will be fine, guys.
Yeah, the chain will be fine. As long as we keep incentives aligned with the users and with the L2s and with the L1, obviously, I think we'll be okay. And ETH is my go-to for assets on chain, and I just love the ecosystem that they've created and being able to have that L2 space. Every L2 seems to have its niche, and I love that. I look forward to seeing what Berachain looks like as far as liquidity goes from that side of things, but also the experience side that we'll see in MegaETH, and just all these different opportunities are out there right now for new users, and I hope we get a bunch of new users. I think Base is doing a fantastic job of bringing that in
Yep.
with their Coinbase connection, obviously. So educating people is what I'm all about in this format, and I hope to be able to do that throughout this cycle and then some. So again, thanks, Brett, for your time. Appreciate it, and again, nice to meet you in person. And we look forward to following your journey with MegaETH and elsewhere. So again, thank you so much for coming. And to all who are watching, have a great day, and we'll see you next time. God bless.